because it's the silly, stupid, fascinating, weird, wonderful. They're my people, and more often than not, they're the geeky people as well.
I mentioned Betamax. For anybody older, that's the old version of a video cassette. Video cassette is an old version of a DVD. A DVD is not set on the cloud. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or from whenever you are listening to us, whether at a later date or on podcast or wherever in the world you may be, also, especially during this holiday-like time of year. My name is Mark, and tonight we are not joined by Becca. Becca is unfortunately elsewhere, hopefully enjoying holiday or otherwise, though I didn't actually ask, so that's maybe a fault of mine. But tonight, we're doing things a little bit differently, mainly because we haven't had anything come in during about our geeky gallery, and I haven't actually had time to look for the geeky news sort of stuff, so we're going a little bit stripped back this evening. However, I am not alone, and tonight I had to be really careful because I should mention that I have been joined by a Tim. However, it isn't the normal Tim that we have had a number of times. I hope Tim is well, and nor is it the other Tim that we've had sometimes. So quite surprisingly, we have been joined by a third Tim. That is no means that he's in third place, but purely that this is another Tim known to me. And actually, out of all those Tims, I think I've known this Tim longest out of those mentioned so far. And so tonight, we're doing things a little bit more relaxed or otherwise, and I'm going to bring Tim on a moment, and I'm going to start, as we always ask, about what geeky things have we been up to since we last gathered. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Tim on.
Hello.
Good evening, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you, Mark?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right. So, Tim, if people don't know you, are you able to introduce yourself in a couple of moments, in a couple of words, or other?
Yeah, I can manage that. So yeah, I'm Tim. I live in County Durham. I've been here for about 18 years, and I met Mark when I was an undergrad in Durham University, and he was training for ministry, and I think we got to know each other. That was about 18-ish years ago now, and yeah, I kind of came up north, studied, joined a church, did an internship, ended up being a prison chaplain for years, and then now work as a chaplain in a psychiatric hospital, which is what I've done for the last 3.5 years. Yep, and completely owning the geek label as well. So very happy to be on this podcast today.
Fantastic. Do you mind me asking what geekiness have you been up to recently? Is there anything that sticks out?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I have, when I get onto the main topic in a minute about Rubik's Cubes and things like that, I have bought a new cube, which I won't show you yet. Yeah, no, I have had some new Lego relatively recently as well. The Star Wars variety, you can probably see that side actually, the little diorama that they do of the Death Star trench run, which is definitely the best one that they offer.
Very good. Well, if there is time, then look forward to seeing some more of that. And folks, do just say if you've been up to anything geeky, what we've been up to. It can be standard geeky, or it could be other quirky geeky. And I think because people say, "Oh, you won't be interested in this because it's not kind of mainstream," and they're going, "No, I'm not interested in all geeky things. It doesn't have to be within a certain niche or otherwise. We're quite a broad and inclusive bunch here. So, I don't mind what sort of geekiness it kind of goes down. I mean, I think the other week I shared about sorting out the toilet system. So, I mean, it really does, there are various depths to this. But folks, do be in touch if you've been up to anything geeky. I've got to say, I've been playing games with my children. Our children have already been off school already. So earlier on today, we played Game of Life Adventure Edition, which is kind of got the spinner where you push it down, and the islands or various points on the islands adjust and change. So that has been quite fascinating, as well as Dungeon Mayhem Monster Madness, or Monster Madness Dungeon Mayhem, which is the kind of card game of various kind of D&D like characters. So pardon, excuse me. That's the kind of stuff that we've been up to today. I'm sure I've been up to other geeky things. Oh yes, I've been playing No Man's Sky. I've picked that up again because I realised there's been
game.
well, it's updated as well, and the only problem was that I kind of was like threw myself back in, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I built this, and I forgot I've got a spaceship, and flew around the planet in a spaceship, and then ran out of petrol or uranium or whatever it is, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, now it's all coming back to me. Yeah, now I've got to walk back around to the other part of the planet to find something. So that's been fun, but slightly frustrating. So
Yeah, I think
that's
that encapsulates that game entirely. It's like really fun until you run out of something, and then you have to spend half an hour just mining whatever it is and fighting off whatever things come at you while you're trying to do that, usually sentinels.
Yes. Well, basically, this might reveal how much I'd actually played, but it turns out I'd not touched the game in 3 years, and someone
That's
talked about the
impressive.
update, and I was like, oh, I'll throw myself back in. And then I was kind of digging for things on artifacts, and basically it was like, oh yeah, by the way, if you make too much of noise or if you pick up various things, the sentinels will come out after you. And I was like, oh, I've not even finished this tutorial, have I? And so then I was kind of swarmed by 7 or 8 sentinels, and I'm going, I really wish I'd remembered how to use the fire buttons and what weapons I'm actually meant to be using at this point, as I got blasted by these sentinels. But I survived, and I'm now depleted of fuel on the other side of the planet from everything else. But never mind. Well, I won't bore anybody further with No Man's Sky, but the update does look fascinating there. But yeah, tonight again we haven't got any of the usual kind of filler bits, but we have got a bit of a quick fire bit. So if no one's going to comment about what geekiness you've been up to, we're going to come up to our quick fire section, which again is just to allow people to get to know our guest a little bit more. And basically, I'm going to run through 20 options, and you're going to have an opportunity to choose one that you're going to keep. So whatever one you say is the one you're going to keep, and this is an imaginary world where the other thing will cease to exist immediately. So you get to have one pass. So if there's one that's really tricky, you get to pass on that. And if you're sitting comfortably, Tim, we shall begin. Here is Faith and Geekery Quickfire. So first and foremost, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars, no competition.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Wool or Warhammer?
Wool.
Chips or curry?
Chips, just.
Disney or Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
Football or rugby?
I get rid of both.
You're a man after my own heart.
Just
got to please some people. Mario or Sonic?
Sonic. It's got to be Sonic.
Very good. Cosplay or escape rooms?
Escape rooms.
Ice cream or chocolate?
Ice cream.
Lord of the Rings or Narnia?
Lord of the Rings, I think it's got to be.
Lego minifigures or painted miniatures? I feel as if I know where you're going to go
Lego
with this.
Lego minifigures, definitely.
Pokemon or Transformers?
Pokemon. Come on, Pokemon Blue. It's the original and best.
I think it defines a generation which one you go for
absolutely.
in those. Squirty cream or custard?
Squirty cream.
Board games or computer games?
Computer games.
Cows or horses?
Oh, that's a left field. I'll go for cows, otherwise there'd be no cheese, and that would be disastrous.
There's one or two more, even more left field. Tomb Raider or Indiana Jones?
Tomb Raider.
Ooh, interesting. Tabletop roleplay games or tables?
Go for tables.
Spaghetti or noodles?
Spaghetti.
radio or podcasts?
Podcasts, I think I listen to more.
Faith or geekery?
Oh, without the faith, I'd probably be out of job. So I have to go for that.
Well, you can pass. You can pass and include
I'm going to
both
pass
of
that
us.
one. That's too
Yeah, yeah,
difficult. Too difficult.
That's good. Well, that is the end of those. Thank you for that, and that's really helpful to see. I'm looking back. I do sometimes make note, and I didn't bother this evening, but I do feel that maybe kind of the Pokemon and Transformer thing is a generational thing,
Yeah,
and that there's a
absolutely.
definite kind of link of maybe there are a certain kind of age group that will lean very much more, and understandably so. I'm not judging either way, but I think there is just like a where does Transformers fit into your childhood memories, and where does Pokemon? And I think I was too old for Pokemon, whereas Transformers for me is kind of engraved. Whereas I think the others, it's the other way around.
So year 7, 8, that like Pokemon and choosing which of Pokemon Red or Blue you were going to get. That was the defining moment.
Yeah, and I think this is it. I think I was old enough to kind of look upon it and kind of go, "Oh, I can see the appeal of it," but it just wasn't there for me, and it wasn't my kind of passion. Whereas I, kind of collecting Transformers, but also kind of the various stuff around Transformers for me was I guess, the Pokemon of the day sort of thing.
I think Michael Bay just ruined Pokemon, and ruined Transformers for me.
Yeah, I get that actually. I get that. I'm always really impressed though that it's Pete Cullen who does the original voice of Optimus Prime and continued to do it throughout, because I think they were pondering at one point whether to choose another voice, but the fan base were like, no, Pete Cullen all the way. But my random point of information about Pete Cullen is that he is the same voice for Disney for Eeyore.
Interesting.
So when you hear Optimus Prime, you're hearing Eeyore.
No, I've heard it. Yeah.
And it's just my nice little bit of trivia that I love to kind of to occasionally bring out, because it is just like such a quirky little fact. And I think he does another voiceover as well. But I always find it really fascinating how voiceover artists can cover such an array of characters. And it's things like there's a chappie who does Biker Mice from Mars, which again,
oh gosh, that's
from the day. But they're going, and I can't remember which one he does now, which is a really useless fact. But basically, you're there kind of going, oh gosh, yeah, they sound familiar, or it's that sort of voice. And then you dig deeper and you go, oh no, that was the same guy doing the same voice, but just different characters throughout. And so I think he was in like Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, Biker Mice from Mars, and then something else. Every just 5 years, these voice artists just kind of, well, they make a living, and they just kind of like make a living, but kind of recycle these voices, or very tweaked voices. Anyway,
I'm always on my IMDb when I'm listening to things like, I know this voice. Where's this from?
Yeah. IMDb is a helpful thing for that sort of thing, or watching a movie and going, who is that person? Oh yeah, I know that person. Anyway, but we're not here to talk about voiceovers or otherwise, and it seems that people aren't here to talk about geeky things either. So I think we can kind of launch headway into our subject for this evening. Is there a certain way that you want to introduce this, Tim, or are you happy just to kind of run?
Just happy to roll with it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, it's Rubik's cubes. I don't even know if there's like Rubik's with a Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So it's I think it's I think there's an apostrophe. It's named after Mr. Rubik. Or Mr. Rubik's. But no, I don't know where the apostrophe sits though. That's a good question.
I'll bring it up.
But this is not technically a Rubik's cube, because those are the kind of official branded ones. But these are the Chinese knockoffs. They're just called cubes, or speed cubes, because as you'll see, they're much quicker at turning. The actual Rubik's branded ones are not usually that good at turning, and are not very quick, and you can't get a good time on them. Whereas these ones are kind of, often they've got magnets in, and they're kind of pre-lubricated. You can buy cube lube to speed up your cubing times. There's all sorts of specialist sites now, whereas 10 years ago there really wasn't. So it's become quite a thing, especially in the UK. Actually, in the last 5 years, there was a big there's a Netflix documentary about speed cubing, which kind of brought it to people's attention. But so I started doing Rubik's cubes. Gosh, it must be about a year and a half ago now, maybe more than that. My son got one in his stocking for Christmas, and he couldn't do it, and he was like, "Do you know how?" And I was like, "No, but I feel like that's a challenge I have to accept." So I went online to the official Rubik's Cube website, and they have a 20-page thing of like Noddy's guide to how to finish a Rubik's Cube, and I think it took me about 5 days of like, I think I could do this, and then realizing there's a pattern to it, and once you've got the pattern and you memorize it, you can do it without too much trouble, and that kind of made me think, oh, maybe I should get a quicker one of my own, which then's turned into a bit of a collector's hobby, and can I do all the different cubes that there are to do?
Fantastic. Yeah, I was going to say this is one of these very quirky things, or a new experience for me. Is that just as you said about your son wanting one or getting one for Christmas? My son also got one for Christmas, and it may have been actually about 2 years ago. So it must have been a very popular thing of children of a very close age, and in fact born the same month. Anyway, so my son got into them, and I haven't managed to be able to crack them, even though I have an app online that helps me do that. And so my son got into them. He has got a big collection of them, and so this is something that still kind of blows my mind a bit about how you kind of plan it. But yeah, I have been aware. He did last Christmas get the cube lube to help him go faster. I also noticed that there are now parts of cubes. So there are
Yeah, you
obviously
can buy
times where
spare
he
parts
gets.
and things,
Well, no, I think he has got frustrated with some of them and just kind of taken them to pieces
Oh, I see.
because
Yeah, I
yeah.
found that the other day. I bought my son a 2x2 cube rather than a 3x3, and it seems to have turned into parts. I don't know if it's through frustration or just curiosity or both.
Well, because my son is into it, my daughter is also into it, so she's got one, which I think is a really nice one. Which for those people on
Oh
podcast
yeah,
is a
that's
three
great.
by one, and so it's very easy to solve.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's just like a little keychain.
it's great.
Yeah, 3x1, which is fantastic. The easiest, I think, so far, unless there's a
Yeah,
1x1. But
there is. It's a bit of a joke that there's a 1x1 cube.
yeah. But
Yeah.
but yeah. So are there any that you want to show, that you want to
Well,
explain, or
I'll take
otherwise?
you through it. I don't know whether people listening would like me to give you kind of a very quick explanation of how you go about solving one, just out of interest, whether that would be
Uh,
interesting for people.
yeah. So, because first of all, we need to kind of like dispel this myth that there isn't like just this one straightforward formula
No,
that
no.
sometimes comes up. They're like, oh yeah, if you've got like a cube that's not solved, you're just going to go left, right, left. You know, twist,
Yeah,
twist, and it'll solve it every time. And I don't think I've ever been
it's not
duped by
true.
that. But I know that there are some people that like
Yeah,
I won't mention the other member of my family who tried doing that, and they were very annoyed to sort of go, well, it doesn't work. And it's just like, well, no, of course it doesn't work, because that would only solve it in a very precise sort
yeah,
of way. So go on, Tim. For those people
yeah.
who
No,
are
that's really good.
unknown to the magic ways of the puzzle cube or the magic cube, go for it.
Brilliant.
Explain away.
I mean, so I kind of spent ages just watching YouTube videos, and not of the people who are amazing at it, because like the top speeds are like 3.5 seconds, and that just takes a level of dedication I do not have. But essentially, there are sets of moves you can do called algorithms, and they are the kind of left, right, left, up, down kind of things, where if you memorize those, depending on what you see in front of you, you can remember, oh yeah, that particular case is that one. And you then forget all the algorithms, and it's just a case of like, riding a bike, you kind of remember the turns and things. So what you have to start doing is, so you have six colors, and the important thing to remember is the middles never change in their relation to each other. So let's try to work out where this works with the camera. So you've got blue, orange, green, and red, and on the top you usually have white at the top. White is there, and then you've got yellow there, and so those ones will never change in relation to each other. So that's the colors you're trying to get on those faces, as they're called faces. The kind of ones on the outside are called so those are corners where they've got three colors, and if it's just two colors, it's an edge piece. So you start off by basically making this little kind of daisy, I like to call it. So you get yellow in the middle, and you kind of put all the white ones there. Then what you're trying to do is you're going to turn them down to the bottom. If I show you this, for example, one that's kind of already done, you want to kind of turn this until the colors match up. So you now got those two. And then all you do is you turn it down to the bottom. And I'm just going to do that quickly with all the others. So turn them all down. So then you've got a nice little white cross. Just ignore that one there. So you've got a nice little white cross, and you'll notice that all the kind of those bits are lined up with each other nicely. So what I want to do next is I want to do the first two layers and fill in that one and that one and that one and that one. And there's an easy way of doing it where you kind of move things gradually, but the way that I've learned is essentially what you do is you get them into pairs. So you want to pair up the kind of corner. So for example, that's red and blue. And you want to find the edge that goes with it, like that one, and then you want to slot them into that bit. So I'll just show you the first one. So say if I want to do red and blue, I will find the red and blue bit just there.
Yeah.
And I will position it over where it needs to go. So right now it's kind of there, and there's its pair, but you'll see they're kind of the wrong way around and in the wrong place and so on. So what I need to do is bring them both to the top. So they both want to be on the top. I know it's a bit shiny, it's quite hard to see. So then you kind of look at, right, so where are they in relation to each other? And I've got the blue one there and the other one there, and I need to bring them together. So what I do is I bring, and this is quite hard to show you, but the blue one down, and I move its pair round and then bring it up. So they're right next to each other. And then all I need to do is, if you can see it, slot them down into that corner. So there we go. So if you can see that, so you've
Very
now
clever.
got that little corner there.
For those on podcast, Tim is doing this very succinctly, very kind of easily, and as well as juggling camera view and otherwise.
Yeah, the thing is, it's the wrong way around. So I'm struggling to. So what I'll just very quickly do is I will just do that for all of them. So if you'll bear with me a second.
No, it's fine. It's because I think this is it, that some people kind of go, "Oh, look, I've done one face," and then don't realise that they've not maybe used the right colours in the right places, and so they've maybe done one side, but they haven't realised the relationship of the other edges.
And that's always the issue, is that you're trying to move things without moving other things, and to start with it's fine because you're just doing the bottom and it doesn't really matter what else you're moving, but as you go up you can move fewer and fewer things, and whatever you move you have to put back in where it was. So what we've got now is, as you see, we've kind of got the bottom all done, and we've got the first two layers done, but the top is all wrong.
I'm going to say the way that you're multitasking, you've just done that so quickly that you've done 2/3 of this cube is amazing.
So that's how quick. So once you've learned all those cases, it is relatively straightforward, but it's taken me years to kind of get to that. The next bit is you want to do the yellow bit on the top. So you don't want to do anything else, you want to do the yellow bit. So what you look for now is patterns. And I've got this kind of nice little upside down L shape. So I know that if I do this particular move, I've got this nice little bow tie.
That was like
that.
Done. Right, okay,
So once you've got the bow tie, I know that when I turn it around like that, if I do, and that's trying to do it on camera now, trying to remember. I thought this had happened. I was like, I've got a mind block now of what to do.
No, it's all right. I'm happy to chat over. Otherwise, if you've got another Rubik's Cube, you can just kind of bring up a solved one.
There we are. There we go. So now the yellow bit's done. So you just remember the set of moves that gets that bow tie into a full one. So as you see that some of them are done, and now it's actually ended up doing that orange bit correctly as well. But as you see, all the others are wrong. So what you want to do next is to get the corners into the right place. Now, as it happens, there's just one move you can do if you've got one bit done, or even if that one was wrong, that would still be fine. You hold that facing left and you do this. And you end up with this nice little kind of castle formation, which is a nice straightforward one. And sometimes you end up with those kind of colors facing each other, or sometimes there'll be one solved, but it's kind of like a U shape. And depending on whether it's a U shape or whether it's they've got to cross over to each other or they've got to go around in a circle, you do a different set of moves. So this one, it's and then you've done it.
Wow.
So there we
Well
go.
done.
So that is one. And the best thing I found about this is just I have one on my desk at work. I have one
Mm-hmm.
at home, and it's just nice to sit with. And rather than faffing around on my phone, which is often a go-to and probably not very good for my well-being, this is good because you get that little dopamine hit, the kind of end, like, oh, I've finished it,
Mm.
and then you kind of have a sense of like, oh, I've achieved something, or you can just fill around with it and play around with it, and as you
Yeah.
get better at it, you can get faster times. And I
Yeah.
mean, I can't really get much under a minute, and because I can't be bothered to learn all the extra algorithms that let you do it quicker. But it is really fun. So that's the first cube I wanted to show you. Just the standard,
Fantastic.
just what's called a 3x3.
Yeah. And that will be the traditional one that people are
That's the traditional
used
one you
to.
can pick up.
But like you said, these are speed cubes, and the bit that I notice is that the central piece is much more of a rounded square
Yeah, I
in
mean
the
that's not
center,
always
and
the case, but yeah, I think
yeah.
it's just. I mean, you can get them that are stickered, like your standard ones are stickered,
Mm.
but this is all painted. And I prefer the ones that are painted because the stickers tend to come off, and they're
Yeah.
not always very easy to grasp. But yeah, there's something quite kind of nice about these, and some of them have. This one has magnets in as well, which just means when it turns, it kind of does a full turn rather than not quite going around all the way.
Yeah. That's very good. And just
Um,
yeah, if you'd like to, are there others that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so I've got a few here. So this is an unusual one. This is called the Pyraminx. This is the second one I ever bought, and this is actually allegedly easier to solve than a Rubik's cube because it's only got 4 sides, and you're doing a different kind of set of moves. So you're kind of doing side turns, and some of them just turn around like that. So it's kind of relatively straightforward. But yeah, this is a relatively easy one to solve. My son can do this one, and
I was going to say I have managed that one, although I do
yeah,
know that my son's one is currently sporting a bit of a mohawk, so
excellent.
it's got various pieces missing from it, which is a little
Yeah.
bit of a
They
reoccurring
fall
pattern.
apart quite easily, the triangle ones. And this is a really good make, actually. If you go, there are various different websites you can get them from in the UK, but this is a make called GAN, which tends to be the kind of the higher end. There's lots of other ones like Moju and Chi and others, but like this is the kind of high end. Like if you get, you know, cubes like this made by GAN, you can pay 60-70 pounds for one.
Wow.
And they have like all these springs and all these magnets, and all the people who kind of do this semi-professionally
So
get the
is that
expensive ones.
top tier, or is that like mid-professional,
Yeah,
or
so
is it more?
well, like yeah, so GAN is kind of what most people will use if they're competing, but I mean, not everyone likes them. Some people prefer other things, but
I
yeah,
mean,
I
I've
mean,
not
there's
even.
the kind of the
Obviously,
World
there is.
Cubing Association, which kind of does all the competitions, but yeah.
I was going to say, as soon as you said that, I was thinking, of course, that there is that, but I'd never really considered that there would be that. So is this
Yeah.
like is it a world thing? So yeah, are there
Yeah,
like
it's a
UK
big
heats and
world
things
thing.
like
So there's
this?
a UK wide one and there's a world one, and yeah,
Wow.
it's big business now, and cubing companies will sponsor people, and it's big money now as well. But it's really exploded. Originally it was very popular in China and Japan, and now it's kind of really come over to North America, Mexico, and the UK to a certain extent. But yeah, so cubing competitions in the UK will take place in big
Nice.
sports halls, and they'll sell out within a couple of days of
Wow.
opening. Hundreds of people, because it's become so popular, particularly through lockdown. I think people
Yeah.
found something to do and enjoyed them.
And as you say, there is that success, isn't there? And therefore, if you know all the algorithms and you
Yeah,
get up to speed, then you kind of can be encouraged to kind of go, oh, maybe I'm
mm,
good at this. And
yeah,
therefore, I could see how that easily kind of lures yourself into this kind of like, maybe I'll compete,
yeah,
maybe I'll give it a go,
absolutely.
see how well I do rank. Oh, that's good. That's good. Carry on. Yeah,
No, it's good.
there's others to go
And
through.
so in the World Cubing Association has a set of different kinds of cubes that you can compete with, and others they don't have competitions for because they're a bit too weird and wacky. But some of the other ones that are kind of official cubes. So the Pyraminx is one. This is a 5x5, so it's essentially the
Oh,
same
yeah.
as any cube that you might get. Um, the way of solving this is almost exactly the same as the Rubik's cube, but with a few differences. So there's 3x3. So what you tend to try and do is you try and get all the centers the same color, and basically you make kind of lines, and then you put all the lines together, and you just have to get them all together without moving any of the others. And then essentially what you end up with is that is essentially one thing in the middle, one kind of color, and then you've got colors around the edge, and then you get the edges to kind of pair up. And then what you end up with essentially is with a cube that's like a 3x3, and then you just solve it like a normal 3x3, and that's called the reduction method. So, and you can do that with any size cube. So you can do that with this, or you can do that with this is the largest World Cubing Association one that they have, which is a 7x7.
Wow.
Now you can buy them up to 21x21, but A, they're very cumbersome. B, they like pop, so the pieces come out all the time, and C, they cost about £1,000. So yeah, this was only about £20. So, but with the larger the cube, the more just the longer it takes, because obviously you've got to get all those lines to match up before you can even attempt it. And there aren't a lot of algorithms to learn around those, that occasionally just for like swapping things around. The issues come with cubes that are even numbered. So if you have a 4x4 or a 6x6, you end up with something called parity, where you get to almost the last edge, but like you need to swap it with the one diagonally opposite, and that's almost impossible without doing a very long set of moves that you have to memorize. Usually at that point I just give up and find a picture online of the algorithm and just sit there going, oh right for about
I've
5
got to
minutes.
put my hand up. I am the person who has the app, that I did try to, over Christmas I had COVID, and I did kind of commit about 3 or 4 days to doing it, and so I did work out a few of the algorithms of lining up to get the daisy at the bottom and sort out the bottom level, and then I was like, you know what, I'm sure there's an app online, and then I kind of went from there. I think I managed to fix it to complete one, but then within like seconds my son kind of was like, yep, okay, it's messy now, can you do it again? I was like, I spent ages doing that. What? So that's why I was like, you know what, the app came out because I'd spent ages doing it, and in moments, in mere seconds, it was kind of devoid. But carry on. So what other ones are there?
So this is called the Megamix. This is probably my favorite one.
So I've got that one. This is again my
it's
son's.
just the same, isn't it? It's great.
Yeah.
So this, believe it or not, this is just the same as a 3x3, because if you look, you've got 3x3x3x3. So it's essentially the same, except you've got 12 sides rather than 6. So you solve it in basically the same way that you solve a normal cube, with a few extra algorithms, but you kind of do the same. Like you get the white bit, and you kind of get the little star at the bottom first of all, and then you use that same slotting in thing that I showed you earlier on to just kind of slot the edges in in pairs, one by one, and you do that all the way around. And all you have to learn is what order to do everything in, because you kind of have to work your way up the cube, but in stages. And then eventually it gets more and more difficult as you get to the top, because then eventually all you've got is this top layer to move things around in, and often you just end up cycling pieces round and round and round until you get them into the right place. Or at least that's why I do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the world record for these is like 1.5 minutes or something ridiculous like that. But usually it takes me a good 10 minutes to do this. I remember that I got this and spent like ages doing it on a train journey to somewhere, and then I realized that there were like 2 old ladies just watching me in a corner, just like completely absorbed by this. It's like, I really hope I can do this, and I finished it, and they were like, "What is that thing that you've got?"
But they are mesmerising, aren't they? For those who
They
can
are.
do it, or for those who can't, they do come across as magic. You're there going, "Oh my gosh, how is that person doing it?" And that, for me, is the overwhelming element of Rubik's Cube. Is that my brain, I just can't think in like the 3 dimensions to do it. And maybe I'm overthinking it, but I think it's just this kind of like frustration of seeing the puzzle, but having to kind of retain not just the face that you're dealing with, is to then having to try and kind of compute and work through the algorithms and make sure. I mean, the main thing for me is making sure that I don't mess up what I've already done.
Yeah, because
and
that's the
that is the
worst thing.
frustration.
It's so annoying when you get halfway through and like, oh, I've messed up. And I mean, there are some cubes that I can't do. I've kind of tried and failed, or I mean, so that this one is called this square -1 or square 1. So it kind of looks like a normal one, on kind of, but if you
like
look on the top, it's kind of like a windmill, like that, and it kind of, and then when you slice it, because it does things called slices, it turns into a weird shape. So you can get like a kite, or if you get it, there's one that looks like the Millennium Falcon, and like honestly, it's just a nightmare. Often just trying to get it into the square shape is the hard thing.
For those who can't see, it looks like a normal square, but then as soon as you start twisting it, it kind of becomes almost like a pentagon kind of shape,
Yeah.
and otherwise
I mean, you can,
it's just
if I
this.
find some weird, wonderful
Oh,
shapes to turn this,
yeah.
so like that you can get like a barrel,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, and you have to make sure they all line up properly. And but yeah,
Yeah.
the Millennium Falcon shape is definitely the best. But yeah, and sometimes, of course, if you don't get it in the right place, it just won't turn at all, and that's just even
Oh,
more frustrating.
and there's
And
something visually upsetting about that. That doesn't look right.
yeah,
Um,
it's a right faff to do
yeah.
anything with. But there we go. Um, there's, if that's bad, this is worse. This is called the Axis Cube. My
Oh
brother bought this for me for Christmas a few years ago, and I haven't even managed to get halfway through it.
wow.
Like, so that is actually a cube shape when it's done. It looks like a normal cube, but all the pieces are the wrong size. You can't turn it unless it's a particular way round. Like, it's this. I spent like days trying to do this and ended up just getting really cross. It's
It
like,
looks
this is
very
not good for my
spiky and
mental health.
prickly, but did you say it
Yeah,
should be like a
it
cube?
will
You
be
know?
again when it's done. It's a cube. Yeah, it's
Wow.
just all the
It looks
pieces
like a
are.
prickly ball,
Yeah,
or some weird arty hedgehog.
yeah. So
Uh,
this is not a World Cubing Association cube. It's
no,
just
no,
a
no, no.
random one. And likewise with now this one I can do. This is another GAN one, which is great. This is again
Yes.
like a cube, but all the pieces are different shapes rather than being different colors. So for
Mm.
people that are listening in, it's all one side. All the pieces are different, kind of either thick or thin, or yeah,
Yeah, my son's got one of those as well. That is currently in pieces as well.
yeah,
Yeah, because it does kind of start off as a cube, but yeah, there are various like thirds and two
mm,
thirds and thicknesses of the
yeah.
pieces as well. And
It's crazy.
so yeah, as soon as you start kind of going through the actions, it
Mm.
does really does kind of become very peculiar.
And I think
Uh,
that the thing is, once you've started collecting them, you're like, oh, I need to get like more. And I did
mm,
have a larger version of the Mega Minx called the Giga Minx, but
wow.
it was kind of 5 by 5 rather than 3 by 3. But it's so
Yeah.
large and cumbersome, it just took ages to turn. It took ages to solve. You got one thing wrong, you had to start all the way from the start.
Oh
And in
my
the
gosh.
I did do it a couple of times, but I just thought this is not fun,
Mm,
so sold it on
mm.
eBay. Um, and this is my most recent and last acquisition, because
Oh, cool.
apparently this is called an FTO, or a face-turning octahedron. Um,
Okay. Yep.
so yeah, it looks a bit like a kind of diamond from a computer game, but essentially it doesn't turn the way you would
Oh,
expect it to.
yeah.
It only turns on what might call the faces, so it kind of turns that way.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I had this on my shelf for kind of weeks, and it was a new version. It's all like magnetized, and they haven't done proper versions of these before. So I thought I must order this. So I got one from China. It took 3 weeks to arrive,
Wow.
and yeah, I've been trying to solve it, and finally managed it yesterday on a day off, just by watching a few YouTube videos. Finally, someone did one that actually made sense. Because sometimes you watch
Yeah.
the videos and think I'm more confused now than I was previously. But yeah,
Yeah.
so this one is essentially swapping pieces round and round. You kind of do the edges, then you do the kind of triangles in the middle, and then you move the other edges around. But it's actually fairly straightforward once you know how.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but my wife has a kind of thing where I have a little box full of these cubes, and they aren't allowed to go over the edge of the box. So if I want anyone, I have to get rid of an old one. Otherwise, it'd be
Fair enough.
cluttering up the house a bit too
But,
much.
well, I was going to say it's interesting because my son has acquired this one, which is a barrel one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wish list.
it's
Cool.
yeah. For me, this frustrates me because it's not a three. Yeah, obviously on the top it's a 3 by 3. So it's got the petal and the triangles, but then on the side it's 3 by, but it's like an overlapping.
That's tricky.
Can you see how? Yeah.
Yeah.
But my son, this is it finished, but he cheated. He took it to pieces. However, he actually got this given to him because there was this lovely person at one of his one of the churches where they were like, "Oh, he likes Rubik's cubes. We've had this on our shelf for ages, and we hate it because we can't complete it." And so it was like a rehousing scheme. You know, they're like,
That's quite
"Here,
nice.
make use of it because
Mm.
we can't get it to work." And so it's been quite sweet, really, that he's kind of become like a and this is it. The collection naturally occurs, doesn't it? That there's a
It does.
fascination of fixing them, solving them, and then other people there going, I've seen you, because again, it's quite a nice thing to see and watch. It's quite a
Mm.
I guess I get the dopamine hit of seeing other people fixing it and resolving it and going from something that is completely chaos to kind of perfection, really.
Mm.
And I think I can definitely see how that goes. And I mean, for me, it's the other Rubik stuff for me. So I enjoy Rubik's Snake. That's something that I've
Yeah,
always grown
my,
up with.
my son likes
Um,
them.
and in fact, I've got about 10, I think, because the thing that I realised that you can buy them fairly cheaply from shops, and basically I was often thinking, what could I do if I could make one bigger or put a few together?
Mm.
And so I was like, you know what? I'll do this, and so I did, and so I've made a large ball. But if I've got time, I'll nip to the study. But it's a bit
Awesome.
of dead time, so I won't do it just yet. Just to take a pause then on this and kind of reflecting on Rubik's, and what do we feel that we can kind of, is there something that we get deeper from it, or is it just kind
Mm.
of stimulating, or what do you feel that kind of you kind of
Well,
bring to it in
one
there?
thing that I've reflected on, and I do at the hospital I work in. One of the parts of the hospital is what's called securing patients. So it's
Mm,
people who would be in prison but are too mentally unwell and be given a hospital order, and it's kind of medium secure. So it's not quite as kind of unwell as somewhere like Broadmoor or Rampton, but kind of it's the step down from that. And often people are there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years plus. And it's a little community, and
mm,
it's a great place to work, and there's some wonderful people there. And we have a little newsletter that the Recovery and Education College kind of sends out to everyone regularly, and I'm often asked to do a little something for that, and it's often a kind of thought for the day style thing. And sometimes I listen to Thought for the Day on Radio 4 and I cringe a bit. It's like, oh, just shoehorning Jesus in the most awkward way possible into a conversation about the news. But I often have to do one of those little Thought for the Day things, and I did think, oh, I could try and fit a Rubik's cube in. So I did one about how, when I started to do these, I couldn't do it, and I got really cross because I was trying to do it all by myself and trying to
mm,
figure it out by myself. And what I needed was other people's expert experience, their advice, their
mm,
wisdom, learning from others, not trying to go alone. And I kind of made the point that actually, in the life of faith and in general, if we try and go it alone, we'll often get frustrated and angry, and things will fall apart, and we won't get as far as we want to. But if we
mm,
try and go together and learn from each other, and sometimes think, you know what, I don't know how to do this, I need to ask someone older or wiser or more experienced, then we're more likely to succeed. And I kind of made that point
mm,
in the little kind of thing I did for the magazine. And it was interesting because we have people there who have learning disabilities, and also people who are autistic, who really struggle with kind of things that are not very concrete or things that are quite metaphorical. But actually, I
mm,
had quite a few people come up to me in the weeks to come and say, "Oh, I read what you said about Rubik's Cube, and I really liked that," and that kind of made
mm,
sense to them. I guess it's like a good sermon illustration. There's something that kind of
mm.
makes people think, "Oh, yeah, I kind of get that. I understand that now because you've used that metaphor."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the thing that stuck with me about kind of saying, actually, I don't know how to do this, and I'm not the person
Mm,
who knows, but I can learn from
yeah.
others. And I think that's very true for the life of faith.
Yeah. And I think there's something very very what's the word, tangible, is that the right word,
Mm.
very kind of uh, objective, that
Yeah,
to get it right,
yeah,
to solve it. So I picked up
yeah,
the 3 by 1 because that's the easiest one to solve. That there is something very definite, isn't it? There's a definite article here of when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. And actually, when in life do we feel that?
mm,
Sometimes we can kind of feel that we're kind of doing really well, and we're actually a little bit off and a little bit skew. Whereas actually, there is something that when things work or when we find success,
mm,
there can be relief. And otherwise, I think for me, there's something here about the process,
mm,
and that sometimes life can feel overwhelming when we're faced with one of these things, and we're like going, and it's like the phrase of like, it's them trying to get all my ducks in a line, and they're going, "What, you've got ducks? I haven't even got," and it feels that kind of life can feel overwhelming, and to be able to kind of journey with people who have done it, who have been
mm,
there, going, "Oh yeah, I know how to do this. Yeah, yeah, yeah." I think it
yeah,
can be reassuring, as you say. I think there's also something here about actually not worrying about the bigger picture sometimes, and just saying, actually, just work on that corner, to just make the daisy, because then that can be, that can just be kind of, again, that expertise to come in and say, just focus on this bit, just do this bit for now, and let that other bit be a future problem. And I guess that could weigh in with Jesus talking about, just worry about today and let the worries of tomorrow, kind of come, and actually it's going to be fine. You're safe in God's hands. So
Mm.
I definitely see that kind of comparison of rubrics, and again, it also just allows you to kind of process, and my son likes to do these and multitask whilst he's talking, or I would say that these are, dare I say, his more extreme fidget toys, but he has fidget spinners and various bits and
Mm.
pieces, and again, it just allows to kind of process and to give space for very tangible and physical things to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in church we often think about very spiritual and kind of imaginative things, or kind of
Mm.
theological things where you're actually going. But sometimes we are very we're quite creative people, and
Yeah.
to have something that's in our hands.
I think working in mental health for the last few years, I've been struck more by that. I think the necessity for something to hold on to, or something tangible that reminds you the presence of God. Um, I'm from a kind of charismatic evangelical background, but especially working in prisons, actually, the number of people come up to me and say, "Well, could I have some rosary beads, or as they call them, rosemary beads?" But I ended up going around with like handfuls in my pocket because they were really popular. um, and there are various reasons why, but for some people, they were just a reminder of the presence of God with them, and they were basically just a Jesus necklace. They weren't really kind of that keen on kind of actually praying the decades and so on, but they kind of wanted something to remind them that God was with them, that they could hold on to, or they could kind of play with, or either that or a little holding cross, or kind of a
Yeah.
candle to light, or like just as something to hold on to. And I think particularly in mental health, when often words are confusing and thoughts are overwhelming and talking about stuff is really actually very difficult,
Yeah.
having something that you can hold on to and interact with in a wordless way is really helpful. And I think I've kind of coming from a very kind of wordy theological kind of thinking, talking about things background,
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
reminded of the importance of actually sometimes we just need to touch and to feel. And actually that's the same communion. Actually, I've been struck by how many people having taken communion together, that physical act that doesn't necessarily need a lot of words, and how important that is for people, and that kind of physical reminder of doing something where talking about things is too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that even kind of goes as far as, like, when you're in church or when you're in a community, to be asked to do a job,
Mm.
whether it's cleaning or sweeping or helping on a sound desk, or
Mm.
there's a plethora of these kind of very hands-on jobs that maybe aren't the deepest of thing, but they kind of enable you to just kind of engage a very physical part of you, to be able
Mm.
to just do and just be. And I think that sometimes is a part of theology, part of faith, where a lot of people like the intellectualism and the kind of extrapolation of exploring theology sort of stuff. But actually, sometimes there is something about just making time and
Mm.
listening, or doing, or just making a cup of coffee, and just being, and being present in a very physical way
Mm.
of cleaning, or of just very kind of day-to-day job. And so I can understand, even like with like cleaning and polishing in an ornate church, for example, I can definitely see there's this very still and gentle spirituality that is still valid. It's still,
Mm.
it's no less valid, because it's not really deep and gushing in liturgical dot dot dot. But Rubik cubes could be a way in to just help give space,
Mm.
and tap into spirituality in a very tangible way. And I
Mm.
quite quite like that. We've got about 10 minutes left. I would like to really nip to my study and bring back a Rubik's snake. Would
Excellent.
you like to just talk to folks about either kind of fixing something or as in doing one of the cubes? I'll literally be 20
Sure.
seconds.
No, that
I hope
sounds.
that's not daunting.
No,
Folks,
that's good.
be kind to Tim in a moment. 1 moment.
So I'm going to start with this one here. I'm going to see if I can do the bottom bit. See if I can do it as quick enough before Mark comes back. And I managed three bits before Mark came back.
Sorry about that, and sorry for the noises, folks. I thought about bringing the Rubik's cubes. I didn't think about bringing the Rubik's snakes. So that is a green one of mine. That was in a sphere. And again, I really enjoy these, and these are the ones that I've kind of grown up with in the 80s. And so it could be quite boring for people to watch. But then I managed to get a few, and so I wanted to kind of upgrade to an even larger. So this is actually 3 Rubik's cubes. Sorry, Rubik's snakes. So one in the middle, and then one on the outside to make a gigantic Rubik's snake. But there is just something very nice and tangible, and just allows you just to focus. It's very clicky though. I won't mention which member of the family, but during lockdown they got them because they were wanting something as a fidget, and they're like, I can't do it on Zoom, it's too loud. And I was like, oh yeah, I've not really thought about that. But for me, just to be able to start off with a long one, and then kind of going into a ball for me. I used to know a Christian talking about the world and the kind of creation story, but again, it goes to become very cliche very quickly. But again, I think sometimes these visual things can help us. There you go, back to a circle.
That's brilliant. I'm still trying to get a Rubik's Cube in as a kind of sermon illustration at some point at church, and I'll get there eventually. But yeah, when I was doing like the end of 1 Kings a few weeks ago, I was like, I'm not sure if I can get like Rubik's Cube into the death of Ahab or not. I think it's probably a no.
Well, I've got to say, my son came with me to a coffee morning, and there was a Rubik's poster. So there's like a Rubik's Cube, but the side profile of it kind of made like a cross, and then it had like one going up. And so it made a cross, and it was like, oh, what are you trying to solve? Or let Jesus solve you, or let God solve you. It was somewhat along those lines. It was a cheesy poster. It was on there. But as soon as he saw it, he went, it's wrong. And I went, oh yeah. And I'd noticed, but I didn't say anything to my church because this is one of their cool, funky posters on their kind of their walls. And basically, they had 2 white parts on the edge.
Yeah.
And he was there going, it's illegal. You can't do that because that's not the right face. Why would there be a white corner on the white bit? And I was like, and so when one of my stewards was like, what does he mean? I was like, he's not wrong, actually. It doesn't make sense. And so this lovely steward kind of went, well, do you want us to change it for next time, sort of thing? And he went, yeah, please.
I love that. Great.
But it is this, Darren say this cheesiness of Christians trying to do something kind of cool or geeky, and yet not understanding, and therefore it makes it causes more damage than what it's worth. And this was purely just a little Rubik's cube poster. So it was like really kind of, oh no, a bit of an own goal really. But
just reminds me of that kind of Sylvester Stallone meme where he's kind of dressed up as a skateboarder. It's like, how do you do, fellow kids? It's just desperately down with the kids and just failing miserable. Mr. Burns in The Simpsons dressing up as a child, like trying to get them to give all the oil money to the power plant.
Yes. And I think this is it, isn't it? And I think this is where, with Faith and Geekery, it is this genuine exploration of something geeky, and to recognise that actually to be geeky is okay. You can be faith and geeky. That is okay. And I think it's the problem I kind of come to face is that if people try to be faith and shoehorn geekiness in, or try to be geeky and shoehorn faith in. It's just this call to be genuine, to be authentic, and to be honest. If you can't fix it, then don't, give it a go by all means. And we should be an uplifting community in church and beyond, and in geekery. We should be an uplifting community that if somebody doesn't know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, then they should be encouraged, and we should be like-minded people, like you shared earlier about saying we should be there and should lift people up and help them. It's a real danger when we kind of try and be all to all and not fully grasp it, and I think that's the real danger when we don't fully get it. And I think for me, it's also when people try and use kind of a song that is like a contemporary song, and then it'll be like, oh, but listen, we're going to have this in church, and they're going, yeah, but you don't understand what this song is being sung about, or you don't understand this context, and therefore it's really cheesy, or actually, dare I say, some of these songs are really offensive, that you've not grasped this point, and so it is a bit of a cultural step for some. But I guess time is nearly upon us, Tim. Is there anything last you want to say about Rubik's, about speed cubes, or about anything along those lines?
I think just to encourage people, if you've never had a go with one, pick one up. Even you go down to the works or something. They're for like £5 or less than that, like a couple, even like £2, or go online. There's a great website called Cubes, spelt KEWBZ. But if you just will look for UK speed cubing shop, that you'll find it. And actually, a normal cube like this is really not very expensive. If you get a decent one, it will last. And just have a go. Watch a few YouTube videos. There's lots of good YouTubers out there with very straightforward instructions on how to do it, and lots of look for like a beginner's method, and just kind of keep at it, keep going, and you will get there. And and often you find that the cubing community is actually really quite friendly as communities go, quite supportive. Yes, people are competitive, but actually most people are just there to have fun. And so, if you're not sure how to do something, put something in the comments of a YouTube video. You're more likely to get a response. And often I've done that in the past, saying, oh, I don't know how to do this. And someone will say, oh, well, have you thought about this? Or have you tried this? So yeah, give it a go. You might find it's not about intelligence. It's not about being clever. It's just about perseverance, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tim. I'm going to drop you off the screen for now. But again, thank you for coming and sharing about Rubik's and speed cubes and all that stuff. And it's been a pleasure. So please don't be a stranger. And so we come to an end of a fantastic evening talking about Rubik's and speed cubes. Still don't know what term to call it, but I encourage you, if you want to chat further, that we have a Discord server. If you've ever come across Discord, just download it on your smartphone, and you can follow the link in our blurb, and I point up, I don't know why, down, or otherwise side to side, and you can find us there, where there's a small community of us who are willing to share and chat about episodes, about geeky stuff, about our various projects and things that we're having a go. I'll try and post a couple of pictures of our Rubik's Cubes and things into the Geeks Gallery. And yeah, thank you folks for tuning in. I hope you can have a good evening and a place to be able to reflect and to be to not have to worry and burden yourself. Place where you can tangibly reflect, whether it's with a Rubik's Cube, a Rubik's Snake, or just time to yourself. I hope you can geek long and prosper. Good night.